Hello everyone and welcome to Traffic Corner Tuesday. My name is Nancy Crow and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for SPAC Consulting and your host for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone of a couple housekeeping details. Please mute your mic to minimize the background noise during the presentation. And also, I would encourage everyone to join the conversation. So please enter your questions in the chat function on your screen, and we'll be answering those throughout the presentation. Also, I want to take a moment to thank you for participating in today's session. We started these websites at the end of 2016 to share some of our expertise with others in the industry. And we've received a lot of positive feedback, which is why we've continued them. And as a thank you for attending today's session, we're going to be offering the preliminary traffic assessment for those people who are attending today's session. So stick around to the end to learn how you can get a copy of your free sample. I also want to mention that Traffic Corner Tuesday webinars are brought to you by SPAC Consulting, which is part of the SPAC Enterprise family of companies. SPAC Enterprise was started out of a need to find traffic data collection products and engineering tools and services for our clients. SPAC Enterprise consists of a group of 6 traffic engineering related companies, including Mike on Traffic, an engineering blog, countingcars.com, an online store selling traffic data collection products, SPAC Consulting, of course, a traffic engineering consulting firm, SPAC Academy, an online store for digital tools for transportation professionals, Traffic Data Inc., a traffic data collection firm in the Midwest, and finally tripgeneration.org, an online store for free trip generation data. We've also just released our May Traffic Corner Tuesday webinars, so look for some additional communications over the next weeks on our roundabout and convenience store webinars in May. Finally, I'd like to introduce our 2 speakers for today. Mike Spack is the president of SPAC Consulting and is the recognized industry leader of traffic studies. He is a graduate of the University of Minnesota, past president of North Central section of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and is a fellow of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Since 1996, Mike has led over 1,000 traffic engineering projects. During the past 2 decades, Mike has founded 4 companies, including SPAC Consulting, and he is the creative force and principal writer of the industry-leading blog Mike on Traffic. He is also an accomplished author with articles published in industry publications, as well as several industry manuals that are used by engineers around the world. Please welcome Mike Spack. Also joining us today is Vernon Swing. He's a senior traffic engineer at SPAC Consulting. He has over 30 years of traffic experience, has a passion for eminent domain projects, and specializes in traffic impact studies, signal design, and mitigation design. During his career, Vernon has owned his own engineering company, worked at the Washington State Department of Transportation, and has worked as part of a large full-service engineering organization. His diverse work experience has given Vern insights into the challenges both of private engineering firms and public agencies, and it helps guide him to create unique solutions for his clients. Vernon is also a regular contributor to Mike on Traffic. Please join me in welcoming Mike and Vern.
Hello everyone, Mike here, and just want to touch base. We're getting some comments that the audio is cutting in and out a little bit. Can you hear me? Is this clear, or am I still cutting in and out? If anyone can put in the chat, please let me know. Still cutting in and out. So bear with us here while I replug the microphone and see what happens there. Okay, test. Test. Okay, how is that? Is that any better for us on the audio? Hello. Okay, I'm getting a no, so I'm hoping that our audio is okay. Dave thinks it's still cutting in and out. Okay, I'm pumping up the volume and we are shutting off everything internet related in the office. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so let's move on. Mike's back here and Vern Swing. And first of all, I want to introduce Vern. He's our new traffic engineering manager. He's been with us a couple of years. And I'm excited to have Vern here. He brings over 30 years experience. He's worked on both coasts, been licensed in more than 30 states, done work in the Caribbean. So it really brings a national level of expertise to the team. And with that, I'll turn it over to Vern.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to chat with you guys and gals. Just thought I'd give you just a short bio on me beyond what Nancy had to say. I have had the opportunity to throughout my career to work on some fairly interesting projects. In particular, I started out working on a lot of ITS type projects on the West Coast and being out on the cutting edge. And as time has gone on and I focused more on development work and engineering work for cities, more of my focus has been on getting things designed to fit within current standards. But I've always had a passion for looking at the future, and being over with the guys here at SPAC, where we're all very collaborative, we're all looking at what's coming, is exciting, and frankly, I feel it's probably one of the best reasons to be here, in that I can provide better service for my clients.
Excellent. Thanks, Vern. And Vern and I go back about 15 years. One of the first studies Vern did was in the city of Maple Grove when I was the traffic engineer back there. So Vern and I have been talking a long time about collaborating. So the first thing we want to get into is, so we're doing a preliminary traffic assessment. We're going to go through exactly what that means. But first we want to start with why and what is this. It's basically a one-page preliminary memo from us that should take us about an hour to put together. The purpose here is to let our clients know whether they're on the development side or on the city or county side, kind of here's our quick assessment of the development being proposed, and here are any red flags that we foresee. It's our, based on experience, both Vern and mine, of if you have mediocre or even bad news, you should bring that to your client as soon as possible to let them know and to react. And if you go through a whole traffic impact study and wait until the very end and submit a full study and there are surprises in there, we've found no matter public or private, you end up with some upset customers.
Yeah, and to Mike's point, when we first started looking at this, our initial looks at this were on behalf of private development, because a lot of times they walk in with a concept site plan, and they want some input on that. So when you're putting your proposal together, it seems like maybe the best time to fire back at them, hey, your access might not be best. You could have a problem here. There's a possible crash information going, out there that's not in your best interest. And it's basically our idea that we want to encourage our clients to get us involved early before things get to the point where it's difficult to back up.
Yep, and so we're offering this to all of our clients, and we've started doing this. We're doing it for free. Even if the development doesn't lead to a traffic study, we're doing it for free because we want to be that trusted partner. As people familiar with my work know, we always lead with value and we believe in sharing. And like Vern said, we want to be that first step in the process, whether it's before they need a proposal, after they've hired us. We go through this assessment right away for a client. So with that, let's dive into the different components and show you what this one-pager looks like. So to start off, we got a title block, just calling it a preliminary traffic assessment that details out the project. So for this one, it's a project in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota for a light industrial concept. The third line detailed the location, and then we just give a quick date of the date we're submitting it.
And then what next thing in there is what exactly what information we're providing for evaluating the site from a very initial look at it. So we'll give them information as to whether or not the access locations are appropriate, necessary, insufficient, etc. Whether or not geometric changes are necessary, such as adding turn lanes or splitter islands or those kind of things. Whether based on traffic volumes, whether we might have to come up with some variations to the type of traffic control that they're anticipating. Whether there are multimodal opportunities, are there trails around, are there bus routes in the vicinity, that type of stuff we'll identify quickly. And then certainly on the side of developers, they always want to know how big a study do you need, and how can they avoid doing that. So usually this is one of those ideas that we put in there as to this is a big deal or it's not.
So these are the 5 categories we evaluate when somebody sends us a preliminary plan. With the multimodal, we sure want to flag, do we need to tie into sidewalks and trails or upgrade lighting? And then Vern talked about the traffic study. We do not fully scope out a proposal for a traffic study at this stage, and
right.
We will be truthful. If it doesn't need if we don't think it'll need a traffic study, we flag that in this section as well. But you'll see as we get through it, we do flag the trip generation calculations, and that is a tip-off for how big of a traffic study we would need if we're going to be recommending one. So then the next section is actually the part that probably takes us the most time to research, as we put together a little table just giving the existing conditions of the few roads that are bounding the site. So the first column is, of course, the street name. Then we come up with the designation. So is it a county road, city road, state road? The one that takes some digging, especially when we're working out of state, is what are the daily traffic volumes? With that, we are not going out and collecting any fresh data. We're just looking, can we find historical data online? We flag how big the roads are, how many lanes is a 2, 4, 6 lane road, are transit facilities available, yes, no, and bike ped facilities, kind of a yes, no.
And then once we have all that information there, we take the concept site plans that we have, and basically whether we use our own data from tripgeneration.org, or whether we use ITE data, we'll do a quick trip generation assessment in terms of daily numbers, AM, PM numbers, and we'll also look at what ITE might recommend for peak parking characteristics, so that the land user will have an indication as to whether or not they've got enough parking or not.
Yeah, so this is a preliminary calculation that we're not going through and calculating internal trip and pass-by reductions.
Right.
We're not giving them a full table of a breakdown of all the uses they may have on site. We're not even flagging out, are we getting the data from our tripgeneration.org or the ITE trip generation manual. We're just giving them kind of our first cut, and again, this is what we do whenever we're preparing a proposal. We go through and we need to come up with the peak hour trips anyways to help scope out the study. So with our spreadsheets, this is a 5 to 10 minute exercise to get in the ballpark trip and parking generation numbers. And we feel it's important with, we've had past traffic corners and blogs of just how much excess parking is in the world and how parking demand is actually seems to be going down, that we want to start to flag. We're not connecting all the dots of saying you have twice as much parking as you need on a site, but by providing the parking numbers here early, hopefully folks are getting to understanding, hey, maybe we should propose the minimum here on site, or maybe we should be going in for a variance. This starts prompting some of those discussions.
Especially, you know, with some municipalities have some outdated parking requirements, and most of the time staff is aware of that, and this will allow the end user to begin that conversation and to start to point to some you know, real numbers or real estimates, so that there's some validity to that conversation.
Ben's asking what's a good resource to look at for peak parking estimates. Our tripgeneration.org spreadsheet. We also do parking calculations in that, so there's a lot of good data there.
ITE has you know, like they have a trip generation manual. They also have a parking generation manual, and then of course ULI has a parking generation manual as well.
Yep, that's the Urban Land Institute, and kind of run into different jurisdictions have different preferences.
Right.
But obviously we're a fan of the data we're collecting because it's new and it's current. Both
exactly.
The ULI and the ITE manuals have some pretty dated data points in their compiled data sets. But trip generation's free. If you're going to be doing this a fair amount, I would recommend you pick up either the ULI or the ITE. Parking generation manuals, ITE in my experience is a little more conservative. They're higher numbers than ULI.
Yeah, it varies depending on use, but yeah.
Okay. So then the last couple of sections here.
You know, what we also will do as part of this is when we look at a site plan, we'll look for possible internal issues that we can pass on to the end user, and you know, sometimes that could be a conflict with a drive-through lane and a parking field. You know, I've actually seen site plans where they have the drive-through lane going the wrong direction, so that the passenger is required to do the ordering, so you know, oftentimes that kind of feedback is appreciated.
Yes, and that's a second step to this. We'll do a quick overview and are there any giant flags, but we've talked about before, and I've blogged, we have a checklist of internal issues we go through, and we try to do that soon in our traffic study process, again, to flag any issues. We want to get those to the designers as soon as possible. Okay. Ben just had a follow-up, but so the reference here, this red box section, as we go down below the table talking about forecasting, the reference, just we flag out any details on the site plan we actually reviewed, because
right,
when we're getting these site plans, the versions are changing pretty quickly. Seems like developers have half a dozen or more concept plans before the one they officially bring to the city.
Well, oftentimes, you know, we'll be looking at say it's a high density residential building, and what we look at will perhaps have 7-8 stories, and by the time we get to the end, it may be down to 5 stories because of height restrictions or shadowing issues or other things that come up. So it's important that, you know, we also identify what it is that we're, you know, looking at right now.
Yep. And then the last section, we did not hire a lawyer to write this paragraph, but we do in layman's terms say this is not an engineering report. They're preliminary calculations. We're not signing off on this as registered licensed professional engineers. Basically, this is our initial impression, And please don't turn this in as any kind of final report to a city or county for approvals. And then also we give our contact info that this is intended to be the first step in an ongoing conversation. So we always include our email addresses of the person who did the assessment, whether it's me, Bryant, Vern, Max, whoever's doing it in the office. Tony asked a question here. That's a great one. How many times have we gone back and ever evaluated our own project after the TIA was done, the traffic study, and the development was fully functioning? I've done it a couple of times, and I blogged about, I'm blanking on who did it down in Texas, but went back and did a trip generation study after the fact on one of his developments. But Tony, you're absolutely right that we don't go back
often enough.
No, and I think it would be a good part of our education, and I've written about this. It's just, you're right, it's hard to do because no one will pay you to do it.
Yeah, when I've gone back and done reevaluations, it's been when I've been working for municipal clients that have, for example, looked at putting in a signal coordination plan, for example, and you do a before study to find out how long it's taking everyone to drive through a corridor, and then you do a second one and see whether or not it was worthwhile, if there was, you know, an improvement, if there was a dollar improvement. And I've also looked at doing, you know, I've done some of that with some of my private clients that want to start their own trip generation information. So when they come through and they, you know, for example, some of the larger general merchandise stores have their own methodology, their own development guide, and in that there's trip generation information that they have collected from after type studies. So, but I can't think of other situations that I've been involved in.
So with that, we've had a few questions. Tony, Ben, thank you. Are there any other questions? Please use the chat to type those in. And while you're doing that, wanted to say thank you, and we'll send you this actual Brooklyn Park template. We'll send it out to you so you can see our verbiage, what we've come up with. We're doing this on all of our projects with our proposals. Whenever any of our clients have a study or a site plan they want us to review, we're happy to spend the half an hour to an hour to do this for free. And we think it would be great if others in our profession started doing this. Plus, we think it's a good service for your clients. So go ahead and text 44222 and text in Traffic Corner or email Nancy so you can see what we have put together. And then, of course, if you have a concept plan, a live study coming up, we're happy to talk to you and work through a specific assessment of your site. Vern is here. We're spreading out to working around the country.
And I'd be very happy to take a look at what you have and just give you my 2 bits, if you will. You know, I certainly would like to see whatever gets done in the world be as successful as possible. So,
okay. So Ben asks, what's a preliminary traffic assessment look like for an intersection improvement or roadway improvement as a municipal agent? I don't think that would fit into this kind of template we've developed. This is definitely more development driven. But it would be very reasonable to look at daily traffic volumes.
Yeah, I'd say daily traffic volumes, maybe
pull up some crash records and do a quick assessment of either that intersection or that road, just to tell you, are these intersections in the gray area of they may need a traffic control upgrade, do a signal or a roundabout, and generally what kind of, are we looking at a 2, 3, 4 lane divided, not divided road?
Yeah, as a road, you know, as you look at it, is the volume today something that would suggest that the roadway should be widened from 2 lanes to 2 lanes with turn lanes to you know, possibly 4 lanes or 4 lanes with turn lanes, or you know, by the same token, is it something where at one point you had several lanes and you want to give the road a diet because the traffic volumes have reduced? That's the type of thing one could you know, give a first blush look at and say, yeah, I think you got reason to change it.
Yep, and I would actually, we've done this for a couple of our client cities where they've had us go through and just identify all the 4-lane undivided roads in their jurisdiction, which are some of the least safe roads typically, and look at daily traffic volumes and just do a quick cut. Are any of them candidates to be converted over to a 3-lane section with a road diet? And that literally is just a couple of hour exercise in most cities. Yeah. And we'd be happy to do that for any jurisdiction that wanted us to do that for them.
Yep.
So we're bumping up against our time here, 1 o'clock. As always, we're happy to hang on for more questions to go past the time. But our last slide here is just coming up in a couple weeks. We'll be talking about roundabouts, and Bryant and I will be presenting there on May 9th. So hopefully you'll tune in for that. We had about 60 people show up today. The last webinar, we actually hit our maximum capacity of 100 folks. So if you are interested in roundabouts, I suggest you log in early, about 12:15, to make sure you get a seat. If we bump into our 100-person or site maximum for a few times in a row, we will upgrade to GoToWebinar, but it's about 4 times more expensive than GoToMeeting. And since we're doing this for free, we want to make sure there's actually demand out there for it. So hope you'll tune in for roundabouts. And okay, seeing another question from Daniel. Be sure to cover roundabouts with pedestrians. Sometimes this issue keeps roundabouts off the table, I'm assuming. And yes, absolutely, Daniel. Roundabouts in some circumstances aren't seen to be quite as pedestrian friendly as traffic signals. So we will be sure to hit on that.
Yeah, particularly for ADA type compliance issues.
Okay. So thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it today, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.